India's tragedy is its large size and its glorious history. See, we have 1.4 billion biometric IDs. No one else in the world has it. There will be challenges, but also opens up opportunities. See, if the business opportunity is there, someone will create a solution. The world seems scary, but believe me, we've been through scarier times. For the hard problems to get solved, you need massive amounts of risk capital. We are a $3,000 per capita economy. At this level of per capita income and per capita wealth, it is unthinkable that we are generating so much of risk capital. So if tomorrow Gmail was to shut down, it's a huge problem for all of India. Tweeting today about how if YouTube was to be shut down, so the revenue loss for content generators may be only 12,000 crores. But the social instability will be massive. There are risks, but at the same time, I'll go back to the point I keep making that as we go from $4 trillion to $20 trillion in GDP at some point, of the extra $16 trillion, 15 will come from India.
Good. Welcome back to another episode. So you've been talking about, in fact, you have a talk later today where you're going to present the case of, why you believe this is the golden age for Indian entrepreneurship, which is, I'll be very curious to hear, how you're processing it. On one hand, I obviously wholeheartedly believe that as well, but I'm also very acutely aware of all the low-hanging fruit has been, kind of taken. $10 billion IPOs happening, routine things. And it's very hard to find the jugaad type opportunities or optimization, efficiency-driven. And it seems like you need to really innovate, build unique IP, etc. And that ecosystem very fledgling. So given that, what convinces you that this is the start of a golden era for Indian entrepreneurship?
Well, thank you for having me again, and always a pleasure just doing bulla with you. See, entrepreneurship is about solving business problems. Now, as we have discussed in our earlier podcast, as the path you take from low middle income to middle income to upper, it will be different from the path from middle income to upper income. So the way you frame the problem that the easy pickings are gone is absolutely right. We are a $3,000 per capita economy. We would like to be a $10,000 per capita economy in a decade or so, or maybe 15 years. But we have solved the easy problems, and now the hard problems will come. For the hard problems to get solved, you need massive amounts of risk capital. Because remember, for an entrepreneur to function, you need large amounts of risk capital, because just ideas will not solve the problem. So when you think about cost of capital and the availability of capital on both fronts, there has been substantial progress. So the risk-free rate, the long-term risk-free rate of capital in India or in any country is the 10-year bond yield of the government. At about 6.5%, and while many people contest that, I think in a year's time it will be below 6. This is the lowest outside of crisis times. It was lower than this for a small period in 2003, 3-4, because at that time, the economy had slowed, and anyway, lots of things, but that was exceptional.
And just to be clear, this 6.5 inflation adjusted is more like 3 to 4%.
Yes, and given that, I do think, and I think the market is still expecting next year's inflation to be 4, is more like 2.5% risk adjusted. But so the real rates are, of course, important, but I think the nominal rates themselves are actually very important. So you look at it from this perspective, that there was a time when the 10-year US bond yield was at 2%, the Indian bond yield was at 8%, so there was a 6% gap. Today, the US bond yield is 4.12, the Indian is at 6.5, so there's a 2.5% gap. I think in a year's time, this could be a 1% point gap. Many large economies, in fact, if you go back in history, one of the reasons that the Dutch were ahead of Britain in the 17th century was that they were known to be big savers, and they managed to bring down their cost of capital. So in order because when your cost of capital is low, your ability to take risk goes up, because then you can, it's a classic discount rate problem. So then you can think about, capital or returns coming 5 years later, and then you can solve bigger problems. what has also happened is that, so this is the risk-free rate, which is government cannot default, and it's a 10-year yield, so long term as well. Now, if you are a AAA borrower or a AA borrower, or an A borrower, because the riskier borrowers, of course the cost is higher. Now, what you have in India is an exceptionally well capitalized banking system and the non-banking financial system.
Yeah.
So what you have today is that this is the first upturn. So now the RBI has been cutting rates. Now monetary easing has happened. Economy is now starting to take off. This is the first upcycle where the public sector undertaking banks, the PSU banks, are not with impaired balance sheets. So the last two times it happened, 2004 to 6 and 14 to 16, it was primarily because they had lent badly in the previous cycle. They had broken balance sheets. They couldn't. This time, they are so aggressive because on everything that is low risk, like salaried mortgages, you must have seen the newspaper reports that PSU banks are gaining share in salaried mortgages because they're the safest asset that you can find, and they're pricing out all the rest. I am aware of PSU banks lending to other PSUs 1 year loans at 5.46%. So this is and I was presenting at this forum of an alternatives platform. This firm got 15-year funds at 7.5%. So it's absolutely remarkable how the cost of debt capital has come down.
Yeah.
And as the competition in the financial system, so the non-banking finance companies are well capitalized, the banks are well capitalized, the PSU banks are still competitive. There is this development finance institution called NABFID, National Bank for Financing of Infrastructure and Development, which in 3-4 years' time has developed a 60,000 crore balance sheet. So it has now bought all the safe bonds. So all the PSU bonds it has bought. So if you are a private bank or an NBFC, you really have to innovate and work hard to build a business. And which means, so while it's a challenge for banks like ours, and we are of course completely up to it, from the borrower's perspective, things could have been any better. So this is debt capital.
Yeah.
But an equally important part is just about the fact that venture capital exists. Now you have everything from angel investing clubs in 30, 40, 50 cities to pre-series A, series A, so on and so forth, to buyout funds. And so today there are funds that can actually buy out a $1 billion company. So this was not possible 10 years back. And this is being sustained by this remarkable change in the stock markets.
Yeah.
So just to give you a flavor of how remarkable these systematic investment plans are, when you are trying to grow at 3 times the pace at which the developed markets did when they were going through this phase, there's no way you can increase labor input at 3x the pace. You can grow productivity at 3x the pace, which we are doing, and I'll come to that. That's the third leg of this argument. But the capital formation needs to accelerate.
Yeah.
Now, if you only do debt capital, then it won't work because it becomes very risky. Because then one downturn and the whole business gets goes to dust. So you need some amount of risk capital, some amount of equity capital. At this level of per capita income and per capita wealth, it is unthinkable that we are generating so much of risk capital. So just to give you the numbers, today there is $3.5 billion of SIP money coming into equity mutual funds every month, which is $42 billion a year, which is give or take 1% of India's GDP.
Yeah. And that's probably fair to say growing at least 10% annually?
It is growing faster than that, but whenever, for the last 5 years, as this has kept growing, people like me have said, let's assume it doesn't grow. Right? But yeah, it is still growing. And in addition, there is EPFO.
Yeah.
So the Provident Fund Organization, which is now contributing, I think, $7 to $8 billion a year in equity. There is also insurance. As insurance penetration grows, a certain amount of the premiums are to be allocated into equities. So some people think it's 80-90 billion dollars. I think that's too high. I think 60 to 70
from insurance alone.
no, combined. So SIP plus EPFO plus insurance plus there is also some discretionary. See, it's not that Indians were never investing in equity, right? So if you put that together, let's say on a sustained basis 70-80. So that's a massive amount of risk capital that is being generated. Now, even if it is, as some people fear, it is missold, that some of these SIP buyers are equating it to fixed deposits, which they are not. It is a risky asset. If the stock market takes a deep dive and stays there, a lot of people will get burned. But till the time that this is coming in, it's like sunlight and fertilizer and a fertile soil, and a whole new ecosystem is emerging.
And this whole thing has just emerged in last even maybe max 10 years.
10 years.
Right?
This is post-demonetization. So during demonetization, as a lot of black money was forced into the system, many of these savers who were holding cash had to find better ways to deploy it. And so that's where, and then AMFI, the Association of Mutual Funds of India, launched this mutual fund Sahi scheme. And that did some education, and the SIPs have actually spread through word of mouth, meaning that, oh, he earned so much, he earned so much. Now, someone can say this is almost like a Ponzi scheme. The stock markets have been going up because more and more people are joining the scheme. But at the same time, it is not really a Ponzi scheme, because it is, while P multiples are high, it is backed by very strong nominal growth in GDP and also, high single digit to double digit growth in earnings. So there is overvaluation from the investor's perspective. But if you think about it from the entrepreneur's perspective, this is very, very good. So you have low cost of equity capital. And because public markets cannot fund early stage entrepreneurs, so suppose you need, you're not going to go to the stock market for 50 crores, 100 crores. But for the VC who is giving the entrepreneur that money, the fact that there are exits down the road which can be enabled by this flow of money is a very important factor. So this feedback loop is very important. And the more people who get exits, so just like what you were talking about, the more the likelihood that VC then raises money and deploys it in India, because he's going to get an exit here.
Right.
And more entrepreneurs then get excited that, look, that guy made so much money so I can also take risk. And this is exactly what is needed for us to not get stuck in the middle income trap, that create an ecosystem. See, middle income trap, I mean, we have to solve dozens of problems.
Right.
We have to create an R&D ecosystem which we don't have, and there are different problems there. But an integral part of that system that we need to build is a system of risk capital, where people jump in knowing that they may fail. And that's where you solve the hard problems. So the more of this capital that goes in, the better and the cheaper the risk capital becomes.
Okay, understood. So this part of the story, what you are saying is, first of all, as a country, we have reached a critical mass of economic development, $3,000 per capita, nearly $4.5 trillion for the overall GDP size. Second, because of digital public infrastructure, and we'll talk more about that, the friction from the system has gone out. It's become easier for people to participate in equity markets, which have also done well. And now I've got this, $60-70 billion of capital coming in, and net of all of that is cost of debt capital is low, cost of equity capital is low. So that can encourage a lot of risk taking. But that is one pillar.
Yes.
What are the other enabler for this golden age of entrepreneurship?
Exactly. So that was the third one, which is ease of doing business. Now, again, ease of doing business is not improving as fast as you would like it. It's very, and frankly, because it's a large and complex ecosystem, there'll always be people on all sides of the spectrum. But what is remarkable is how rapidly regulations are being eased. Just this year, 7 states, and this I'm just giving an example.
Sure.
7 states have allowed women, have amended their labor laws, allowing women to work the night shift. Now, what is surprising, of course, to many people is that women were not allowed to work the night shift. But yeah, there were restrictions. And many of them are amendments to the Shops and Establishments Act. So basically, as modern trade, as some of these shops, the hair salons, all of these start opening up, and they need women to be up and about till about 10, 11 p.m. You need the labor laws to be amended, and so these things are trying to happen. State governments are creating white lists that if you belong to this industry, you don't need to get environmental clearance. You don't need to get XYZ clearance. And therefore, the process of starting a company, the process of expanding a company is becoming simpler. It is still nightmarishly complex. Tax, I think, needs significant amount of simplification. I think the tax authorities, I think their behavior towards taxpayers.
What were recent GST reforms? Did it help this?
It is huge. It is huge. I think the simplification, the fact that there are only 3 rates, just to give you a very clear example of how powerful this is. So when the Honorable Prime Minister announced on 15th of August that there will be, GST reforms, we had to decide what will be the impact. Because of course, the government came up with an assessment a few weeks later, but in the markets, you have to be ahead of the curve. Now, we were doing the math that if 28 and 12 are taken out, how much revenue loss will there be? But then you had to first figure out which category will be mapped to which rate. So the moment you start thinking about, okay, small cars, are they going to 40 or are they going to 18? It is straightforward.
18.
Right? Yeah, 18, right? So, and whereas if you are 5, 12, 18, 28, it is tricky. So, so the fact that these are very clear, distinct rates for food processing, the rates have been 0 to 5. Now, there are experts, and I'm not an expert on agriculture by any stretch of imagination, but there are experts in food processing and agriculture who say that in 5 years' time, a large part of India's food industry will get formalized. Because now there is no disadvantage in staying outside the system, or no advantage in staying outside the system. You think about how this shows the government's attitude towards consumption. You read the history of Maruti, and I've read multiple versions of that history. It was considered a luxury good. But with 18%, the government is now finally disclosing that it does not consider cars to be a luxury good. The fact that branded cosmetics does not need to be at 18% is also a realization that we are a $3,000 per capita economy. So I think the GST changes are, of course, very, very important. But at the same time, there are changes happening in like decriminalization. I mean, it is only when you read the clauses in various states that have been decriminalized. Did you know that if you built your own house and there was no provision for municipal piping, water piping, you could be sent to jail?
Really?
Yeah. Wow. So because some of these were just archaic. And what has been fascinating, and this is where, the society grows, because we all learn from each other. You have to first solve the meta level problem. Meaning, everyone said we have to deregulate, we have to decriminalize. But what do you deregulate? What do you decriminalize? So then there's this company, Teamlease RegTech. Now, Rishi and his team have compiled this list of compliances. Now, you can go to a ministry and talk to the secretary and say, these are the clauses under your ministry which have a criminal penalty.
Right.
You'll be surprised, many of the secretaries didn't know. Now that they know, they say, oh, this is ridiculous, remove it. So, so this is how, and and many of these were just misused. It's not that, you won't believe it. In one of the states, someone threatened an office that the name of your office is in not the right font size, so I'm going to put you in jail. Yeah, that was a real thing. And so this guy phoned up the headquarters, and the headquarters guys said, oh, I will know, this is not fair, this is completely wrong, I will sue them. He says, sir, he's only asking for 500 rupees, I'm going to give him 500 rupees. So this is how it was misused and harassed, and it was used for harassment. So this is also happening. So while I think the time taken to start a business, the time taken to wind down a business, to get approvals, is still massively higher than what it is in, say, Malaysia, Thailand.
There must be, See, everyone's aware of this. We've been, I'm sure ever since you've been, been talking about, policy and thinking about economic development and the ease of doing business. I don't think anyone disagrees, including, I'm sure, pretty much anyone who has any say in policy. What's holding things back? What will accelerate this aspect of making it easy for entrepreneurship?
So one is external pressure.
External pressure will make it easy, or
will make it easy. So I'll give you an example or a story. So the leader of one country. So we had a president. He was meeting 5-6 of us economist types, and he said, India's tragedy is its large size and its glorious history. Now, while all of us could see the large size and glorious history, we couldn't understand how this was tragic. And he said, this is why you don't change. Because there is never an existential risk. Now, you think about, why is it that shrimp exports to Europe, now there were headlines 2 days back that, shrimp exports to Europe are now going to ramp up. All that has happened is that there were non-tariff barriers there, some regulatory issues, which the Commerce Ministry, because the shrimp at 50% duty to US meant that Indian shrimp exports couldn't go there. So they worked on it. In a few weeks, it resolved. So it had to wait for the US to put a 50% tariff, where before people woke up and said, oh, this is easy to do. What is also happening, I think, is, like, for example, take Aadhaar. Aadhaar was cutting edge when it was designed. But when it was designed, iPhone was 2 years old. There was effectively no Android. Today, there are, 850 to billion smartphones in India.
Yeah.
So when I joined Aadhaar, my first question was, why aren't we using an Aadhaar app? So we had a M-Aadhaar app. Yeah. And it was effectively a replica of the website. And, PVC card, order PVC card and all that. I said, look, this is a huge tool for engaging with users directly.
Right.
It is, and believe me, there was no resistance. So someone had to give an idea and someone had to push it through.
Yeah. So where are we with that app?
So that app is actually, it has been soft launched. So there are now already, I've seen some reels and all of that on how easy to use it is and all that. So we are now signing up on use cases where you go to a hotel and just like you scan a QR code to make a payment, you scan a QR code and you share the details that you need to. You don't have to give your Aadhaar and then someone takes a photocopy and you don't know what happens.
That's outstanding. So is that those are going to be real use cases?
This is a real case.
Hotel, you
yes.
mention my Aadhaar and...
No, you just scan your Aadhaar and you're in your app and you say, I want to share whatever is required, right? So name and address.
Right.
And that's it. You can do age gating. So you can, if you're, say, going to a concert, you just have to scan it and say, okay, I will just share my age or year of my age.
So you don't need your physical ID in most places then?
You don't. So this is what I told the team, that look, it is embarrassing that, you go to an airport and you show your boarding pass on your phone and then you take out your Aadhaar card and then you show.
I was fumble, we just, ek khane boarding pass pakada hua hai, main wallet
exactly. Or you go to many government offices and they say ID and you show, fake bhi ho sakta hai.
Correct.
So, but if you make it digital and you can see, it's all privacy protected. So it's not that just because there is, you can actually do offline so long as it is authenticated. So there is so much more that the Aadhaar app can access. So the example I'm giving, or take the example of, say, the Aadhaar Seva Kendra. Now, we were all aware that there is a massive amount of overcharging happening. That, on Twitter, I get marked. There are lots of emails that we get that mobile phone update costs 50 rupees. They charge me 150 rupees. There was this guy in my village who, for his 2 kids, had to pay 2,000 rupees each. And I was talking to my father on my weekly Sunday call, and he said, Virendra's son, the kids, they took 2,000 rupees. I said, hey. So I asked the Aadhaar folks, since when did we start charging for Aadhaar card for kids? They said, oh no, shouldn't happen. You give me his number. So gave his number. He said that was right, it was overcharging. We suspended the operator. I said, okay, great job. Now what happens? So they will appoint a new operator, new operator there. Who will need to appoint a new operator? So the state governments run this. So I said, really? Because I'm not even a bureaucrat. You really think that overcharging was going into the operator's pocket?
Yeah.
So how do we solve this? And the team then decided that we should increase supply.
Yeah.
The economic solution is to increase supply. So what we have done now, just like TCS runs the passport office, private sector intervention. So we have now, we had our own, 80 odd Aadhaar Seva Kendra. Now we have one in every district.
Okay.
So it's starting off in November. So we've identified there was a RFP. It took its own time in, structuring it, what is the right level of compensation, there's a bidding, how much cost it will incur. But now, so what I'm saying is that for a while, this was not happening. But now you will see that, just one another fascinating example, and this is something which is not in production, but let's see if we can take it there. Google has a very unique problem in India. So if there are 1 billion smartphones, there are 3.5 billion Gmail IDs. And their understanding is that most of these Gmail IDs are because when someone buys this Android phone, the shopkeeper just generates a random Gmail ID, sets it up and gives it to them. They've lost all their previous data and the old Gmail ID is never going to be used. And this one is, of course, the new, and all of the things have to be reset. What if its primary purpose, and you should see that in the name of the law, the act as well, it was to uniquely identify beneficiaries of government subsidy.
Yeah.
But today, it is doing more things than it was supposed to do.
This is the kind of most credible identity that every
exactly
has.
Exactly, and therefore it is starting to take on roles which it was not designed for. So, for example, it is used as proof of date of birth. It is used as proof of address. But we are not the first proof of date of birth. And I can tell you that there are people, the first legal notice I got in my life was when someone sent a notice to the Aadhaar chairman that I think he was not being allowed to change his date of birth more than twice. There are people who changed it 10 times. And all the times we check the date of birth from with the proper, there's a birth certificate.
What is the incentive to change your date of birth?
But there's massive incentive. So there are sports people who, to meet certain age criteria, they can keep changing. And they'll say, oh, my coach told me to.
Yeah.
And there are established systems. Like I said, we insist now on QR codes on birth certificates so that we can go to the source of origin and validate that it is not a fraud. They're generating 10 genuine dates of birth certificates.
Right.
So there's clearly fraud happening somewhere, but it's not with us. But we cannot be, because we are not the primary source of date of birth. We are not the primary proof of address. But, so like a friend of ours, you know him as well, he said that, everyone must be complaining to you about Aadhaar. This didn't happen, that didn't happen. And he's absolutely correct. I only get to know the bad cases. But he said, I must tell you that how happy I am that I just changed my Aadhaar address. He had changed his house. And in one click of a button, all my bank addresses got updated. I said, yeah, great job. We are not proof of address, but the banks do use us as a proof of address. So this is exactly what you're saying, because this is the most credible proof of identity. So it is starting to take on additional roles, which it is currently not authorized.
What is connected? Aadhaar is obviously very useful. I think it's and it's great if more and more use cases are being enabled. And as you're saying, we are also bringing in the updating the technology and bringing it up par with what's the latest, greatest. But what is the big picture here? What does cutting edge in Aadhaar enable for the country or for the individual?
So one, I think you should be able to trust that if Aadhaar has said this person is the person, then you don't need to doubt it.
Does it link back to ease of doing business? I'm just trying to see, like,
It
what
is.
is the, what is the larger benefit?
It is that establishing trust is such an integral part of. Okay, so how is it that India is such an outlier in terms of the penetration or the ability to collect equity capital and mutual fund inflows and the number of people who invest in mutual funds versus its per capita income? We're an outlier. I was talking to this person who kind of runs the data body for the US manufacturer, mutual funds association. He was saying, $30 a month. So, SIPs is about 2,600 rupees, around 700 rupees a month in 11 crore folios. He said, that cost, it's not possible.
Yeah.
You only can do that because you are able to do KYC at a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
And that if you can't trust the KYC, you won't be able to do it. So it is, Aadhaar, as the name says, it's the right platform, right? So, okay, this is just one example. But, coming back to the ease of doing business, I think regulators are at it. They're questioning. In fact, there was a remarkable statement from the RBI governor recently. It's actually part of the policy document that came out, that the allocation of business between entities of a financial conglomerate will be left to the wisdom of the boards. Now, compared to where regulators would try to prescribe that if there's a financial conglomerate and there are these 10 different groups, then okay, only one entity will do one business.
Right.
He's saying that, look, you decide. Now, that's very important for even competition to exist between groups, between entities of the same group. So I think these changes are progressively happening, I think, starting to happen across regulators. At this stage, we are in late 2025. We are at an easing stage. There's this very hard to understand risk cycle or risk perception at a population level, which I doubt anyone understands. I don't know if you've read any books, and if you have, I would be very happy to point out that how is it that the split between males and females in a population is in such a narrow band, right? Because you would think that if it is completely random, then it could be swinging.
Large numbers.
It applies to cities, applies to states, applies to countries. They're all in that 950 to 1050 band, right? Males to females. So at a population level, there are lots of things happen that we don't understand. So same with risk appetite for regulation. Till 2 years back, for some reason, it was a time for tightening regulation. So every regulator was trying to tighten things. Now, we are in a stage where every large regulator seems to be easing regulations. And very famously, government has two committees. Every state has a, Jan Vishwas bill where they are decriminalizing things and all that, which is great. So coming back to the first point, I think if your cost of capital, debt and equity, availability of capital, various types of capital, geographies of capital, because which city you are located in and all that, access to infrastructure. Indian port efficiency now is now comparable to that of Singapore. It's actually better than that. We have very efficient air travel, very affordable air travel. So the road infrastructure is improving. So there is significant amount of progress in terms of the environment for entrepreneurship. We can still complain, and we should try to keep improving.
Maybe I am looking at entrepreneurship from very narrow band of whatever, starting an internet company or some technology innovation. But I think you mean entrepreneurship much more broader sense.
Oh yeah. Right. So I mean that if you're say if you were doing precision manufacturing for an aircraft component, and you want to transition from that to doing that for a mobile phone or an electric vehicle, and you're setting up a new factory, the raising of capital for that, the permissions for that, the approvals for that, getting the land for that is now a lot easier than it used to be.
But most of that entrepreneurship, which I presume is probably a much larger chunk of entrepreneurship in the country, is outside of this whole VC public market exit ecosystem. This is a very different type of,
No, I actually you'll be surprised. So, so when you okay, so very large part of the innovation is actually happening in the financial ecosystem. So a lot of the fintechs, are in India today are really cutting edge, and perhaps many years ahead of their peers in other markets because of the digital public infrastructure we have. But at the same time, and so they are real world businesses. These are not just internet.com kind of businesses. Even in manufacturing, so hardware manufacturing is where there is so much excitement now. Precision manufacturing, or even you want to set up a data center. The pace at which you get approvals, the amount of land you need, the energy you need. So state governments have figured out, for example, that if you can't compete on the cost of energy, people will not come to you. And so while the hard task is to do distribution reform, stop subsidies, reduce subsidies, and so on and so forth, what they're saying is that, okay, we'll solve that. But for now, let me give explicit fiscal subsidy and say, I'll give you power at 2 rupees or 3 rupees a kilowatt hour. So those things are starting to happen. And I believe, and I see so many of these VCs, like we discussed semiconductors. In the last 2 years, there have been so many Indian VCs which have now started focusing on building capabilities on Indian chip design companies. So I was speaking at the annual day of one of these venture capital firms, and I met 3 entrepreneurs who were actually solving really hard problems.
Got it. And there, this, just going back to where we started, this whole golden age of entrepreneurship, is there a sectoral view to this, or type of opportunity, or perhaps even geographical view to it, big cities versus small cities? Like, what are the other lenses from which to process what is this opportunity about, who it is accessible to?
Yeah, so that I think is, see, some of the sectors are naturally about large pools of capital. So as we discussed, if you want to set up a steel plant today, you need $4-5 billion. Only a few groups have that. If you want to set up a large power plant, so those are things which only the established guys can do, large refinery, big airports. But the moment it comes to, say, the hardware tech ecosystem, the kind of momentum I see in because Apple has decided to partner with, just like they did with China, they wanted to do that in India, or 80% of the capital stock in terms of housing and infrastructure that we will have in 2050 has not been built yet. So there will be many such businesses which will actually have to get created. There will be consolidation. There will be formalization. As I said, food processing. The luxury to have brands is dependent on your income. So when you just want to have, I'm sure you remember that there was a time when people used to buy edible oil. There was a big container, and they would just dig it out and put it in some container, right? So from that to branded and fortified and this and that. I doubt there's much value add, but at least the brands are there. So to be able to afford a brand, so I think branded consumption will go up a lot across sectors, and even in the financial ecosystem, I think the hard problems are likely to get solved by some of the startups, because in order to, and this is something we have addressed in your earlier podcast as well, that in order to make our growth as equitable as possible, because in a democracy, it is not sustainable to have growing inequality beyond a point. you need to be able to distribute capital at lower ticket sizes. So just like we've now learned to gather $30 of risk capital every month from 11 crore folios, we need to be able to deliver 50,000, 30,000 rupee ticket loans at scale without creating 10, 12, 15% NPAs, non-performing assets. So therefore, I think a lot of this innovation it is already, and a lot of it will happen.
And how does this whole evolution of entrepreneurial ecosystem change in the new geopolitical situation, which has also been evolving very, very rapidly? And this has been a pretty strange year, to say the least. And somewhere, there are the global geopolitics now has to think about energy, has to think about rare earth, from the semiconductor context, have to really think about data centers and GPUs, and where is what AI we are using. So how does that change the whole entrepreneur?
Yeah. So see, it is these pressures. It was I was perhaps being a bit facile and just attributing it to India, that India doesn't change till there is external pressure. Most of the highly innovative times globally in history have been around war. So I'm hoping and praying, and I'm certainly not expecting anything to happen in the next couple of years, but these stress points drive a lot of innovation. Yeah. So, for example, when we were thinking of a startup ecosystem around Aadhaar, see, we have 1.4 billion biometric IDs. No one else in the world has it. So, but at the same time, and we need partners to build solutions around it. So, because our core job is to make sure that identity is sure, trusted, clean data, and all of that. And then you build layers on top of that. Now, so we said, look, let's have a sandbox approach. We opened it up for startups. And we are also creating a fund where we can support or at least give funding to some startups which are building solutions, early stage. The example given to us, use IDEX as a template. This is the defense ministry in 2018. They started this. And so Operation Sindoor was a shining example of the success of that. So, so within the government, and so we are starting to see these innovations which would not have happened if the environment wasn't changing this way. So, and you must have noticed, you interact with these folks a lot more, but all the people I know in the US who've done startups, in enterprise software, almost everyone's first customer was Department of Defense. So it is these entities which then provide the necessary sort of testing grounds and some initial revenue. And so I don't think we're there yet where we would like to be. I don't think we'll ever get there. But we are starting to move in the right direction. And it is these complicated times that create the incentive for change. And they create opportunities. Like in the semiconductor discussion we had, it was because China and the US are splitting up, and the US does not want advanced testing machines and advanced manufacturing machines and EDA tools to be sold in China, that these guys want a new market. And they want that revenue to be able to fight the Chinese when they come to hit them 5 years later. So all of these are opportunities, but at the same time, I think there are lots of risks. I think, our exports are falling now because whatever China was dumping in the US, now it's dumping elsewhere. And therefore eating up our markets. Hopefully this is a short-term phenomenon. But it will force our manufacturers to become more competitive. But anyway, there will be challenges, but also opens up opportunities.
The other big change of last few years is, just a rise of big tech. I think, almost like East India companies of the past. These companies are kind of nation-state equivalent in terms of the, market capitalization they have, how much cash they're generating, how much control of the entire, technology stack of the world do they have. So from that, and looks like it's just going to get, I don't know, should I say worse and worse or better and better for them, but it seems to be heading in one direction. How does that change the whole policy making? Because it's, very difficult to do anything or compete or even hope of competing with these companies So that's for policymakers must be a very big consideration.
It is a huge challenge, especially given that in the rise of the intangible economy, basically that as that book says that tangible assets have finite capacity, intangible assets have infinite capacity. So if you have a successful product, you can just keep copy pasting it as many times as you want, and that automatically drives consolidation. But at the same time, remember that there are new threats. So Tesla is seeing a lot of threats coming out of China.
Everyone is seeing a lot of threat coming out of China.
I know. And I was going to give another threat, which is I was reading today that the use of AI models, even in the Bay Area, people are becoming fans of DeepSeek and QN, and so there is so there will be more competition, and so each of these firms has to keep running. So you will see that if Apple stops innovating, of course it can last for a couple of years without a big feature change and all that. But if it doesn't, it falls behind.
Look, and somehow US and China will be fine. Where does this leave India? Looks like right now this whole mostly geopolitical war, especially around big tech, is between China and US. But we are in some ways a bit of a bystander. But how do we play this?
See, at $4 trillion GDP and $3,000 per capita GDP, we have so many internal opportunities that of course, we have to be careful because we are all users of big tech. If tomorrow Gmail was to shut down, it would be a huge problem for all of India. In fact, there was this Twitter post.
You are enabling 3.5 billion Gmail accounts using Aadhaar.
I know maybe 1 billion are being used, but point is that so there is a huge issue. Someone was tweeting today about how if YouTube was to be shut down, so the revenue loss for content generators may be only 12,000 crores, but the social instability will be massive. Right, so all the people who are kind of keeping themselves busy watching YouTube videos will suddenly have time, and they start thinking.
Finally the workforce will be unleashed. Actual काम करने का time मिलेगा.
Yeah, but I think there are risks. But at the same time, I'll go back to the point I keep making, that as we go from $4 trillion to $20 trillion in GDP at some point, of the extra $16 trillion, 15 will come from India. So the opportunities are mostly in India. Export competitiveness helps from the perspective of productivity, the channel of transmission. So if you're able to export, means that you are competitive.
But with that, look, that 15, the dependence of that on big tech, is that a significant consideration? Doesn't matter whether apna ho, bahar ka ho, as long as we are producing here, consuming here, it's fine.
TikTok gaya, kuch aur aa gaya. So so long as, because what also happens is that many of these people if the business opportunity is there, someone will create a solution. So and I know that, some of these products, okay, so in AI, maybe the engines may not be as sophisticated and they will be slightly less efficient. But so many of these models are open source. Secondly, if say a Gmail copy has to be created, well, it'll, you may lose access to a lot of data, but hopefully Google is not going to go down that path. But the data localization, etc., will make sure that at least, there is some protection. So there are risks, but I think the opportunities are all in bringing down unit costs. It was because the unit cost of a financial transaction was brought down that we have digital public infrastructure, financial inclusion, which is well ahead of what our per capita GDP shows, or mutual fund or risk capital generation way ahead of what our per capita GDP shows. If we can use some of these tools to solve the same problems in education and health, Bihar and UP spend more as a percentage of GSDP on education than Kerala.
I didn't know this.
But the per student spend in Kerala is 5 times that of Bihar and UP. So it's one of those classic economic vicious cycle problems, because you don't have income, you can't spend, and because you can't spend, you can't get income, right? So the way to break through this is to bring down the unit cost. And so how can we do that, and how can we solve some of these problems? So there's enough for us to do. I think world seems scary, but believe me, we've been through scarier times. And if you really go through like the granular history of the last 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 years, I can't think of any time which we didn't have, there was no scare.
Got it. So basically, what you're saying is there enough and more to do within India. There is a lot of momentum, and all the data that you're quoting speaks for itself. And if we just somehow we maintain that momentum, we can watch this, unfolding of global geopolitics. Part of it is entertainment, part of it maybe we need to do something strategic, but probably not overblow it also and give too much credence to it. Our entire fate is linked to how this geopolitics shakes up.
Exactly. And the real world does not move at the whims and fancies of individuals.
Or an individual.
And we are seeing that. So in the first Trump administration, there were adults around him which stopped all the, let's say, or a large part of the immature stuff from coming out. Today, that's not happening. But if the immature stuff starts coming out, it will get rebuffed by the real world. So we are already seeing tariff pullbacks. Supreme Court is now already questioning the constitutional legitimacy of reciprocal tariffs. So all of these things, so this book, Fear, which Bob Woodward wrote about the first Trump administration, is called Fear because Trump thinks that power is exercised through fear. So if you know that all he's trying to do is incite fear so he can wield power over you, the first thing to do is not feel afraid. So, and I think and it's not just false bravado. That's how the world runs.
Cool. I think that's a pretty good note of optimism, Neelkanth. I think you continue to have, keep yourself appraised of what's happening. You are, I think, now playing very active policy shaping role through a variety of your roles across semiconductor mission and UIDAI. Yeah, like mouthful, but I think the overall kind of driving the next phase of evolution of Aadhaar and a lot of innovation around that. And I think you have a way of explaining the complex world, what it means for us, how we can navigate. So it's always, very helpful to talk to you. Thanks for taking the time.